The regular meeting of the Eastpointe City Council on Tuesday, June 6, 2017 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the invocation given by Councilwoman Sarah Lucido and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, we thank you for the many blessings you have given us. We ask that you encourage all people of all nations to continue their fight against terror. As a society, we must find ways to work together to combat evil. Please guide this council as it works towards doing what is best for our city, the city of Eastpointe. It is in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a very unusual treat today. This is the first time that the county treasurer has ever come to a city council meeting. So I welcome Mr. Larry Rocca and his assistant, if you would introduce them. And then we also have our county commissioner, Veronica Kleinfeld, with us today.
Good evening.
Speak
Madam
loud
Mayor.
into that microphone.
Can you hear me
Everybody
now?
wants to hear
Can
what
you
you're
hear
going
me
to
now?
say.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I'm Macomb County Treasurer Larry Rock, and I'm accompanied by your Macomb County Commissioner, Veronica Kleinfeld, and my Chief Deputy, Joe Biondo. We're here to present to you some funding that I think you would greatly appreciate. As a Macomb County Treasurer, I'm responsible for managing the delinquent taxes in the revolving fund. The fund is used each year to purchase delinquent property taxes from local governments. The benefit to local governments from working with Treasurer's Office in the collection of delinquent taxes is the prompt payment of those taxes from the fund to the city. So today I'm here this year. I would like to present to the city of Eastpointe a check in the amount of $2.4 million I'm sure you can use. So here it is.
And you know where that money goes, straight to the treasurer.
And I think the county commissioner would like to say a few words. And also, oh, did I unplug? No, good. Oh, county commissioner?
Obviously, this program has been around for quite some time, and I think it's really beneficial to the county as well as to the cities. We have developed a really good working relationship. They're in constant contact with us, which is greatly appreciated, and routinely come up. Recently, they came in and educated us in great detail about the Treasurer's Office and all of their functions, and that was a first. So I would just want to thank you for that, and have a good evening.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Roca.
You're welcome. Chief Deputy Treasurer Joe Biondo would like to say a few words. Joe?
I just wanted to be real brief and just invite the members of the City Council and anybody watching at home or any of the residents of Macomb County, if you're interested in learning what the County Treasurer's Office does. Treasurer Rock loves having people come in and taking a look at what we do. So if you're ever in Mount Clemens, come on down to the County Administration Building. We're on the second floor. Be happy to see you and walk you through and show you what we do for the county. Thank you.
Great idea. Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you completely. And also, I would like to thank my good friend, Steve Duchesne, the manager. Great guy. I've known him for years. Thank you very much, City. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move into the roll call, please.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Here.
Councilperson Lucido?
Here.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Here.
Councilperson Marion?
Here.
Mayor Pixley?
Here. And tonight is a very sad night for us because we're saying goodbye to one of our council members, John Marion. So we have a plaque to give you, Mr. Marion, which reads, John F. Marion, in appreciation and recognition of service to the city of Eastpointe as city councilman from 2015 to 2017. And then I'd like to read just a little bit about what Mr. Marion has done for the city. A great deal of this was done long before he decided to run for city council. So we really want to appreciate all your significant contributions to Eastpointe. You were a member of the City Council just since November 2015, but you were a member of the Recreational Authority of Roseville and the Eastpointe Board, namely RARE, from 2013 to 2017 for a 4-year period. But more important, everybody that looks at you is going to remember one big thing, that you were the founding member of My Dog, the Michigan Dog Owners Group, and it worked really, really hard to establish that My Dog dog park in the city of Eastpointe for the enjoyment of all of our canine residents. But I remember many a year when you were also a member of the Police and Traffic Safety Commission, and you would come in and tell us what was happening and what we needed to do. And long before you were on RARE, you were appointed to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and very, very active in that group, as well as being exceedingly active as the liaison currently to the Planning Commission, as well as to the Eastpointe Housing Authority, both of which are going to miss you tremendously. But there's a great deal more, because there isn't anybody that's been around East Detroit High for a very long time that wouldn't recognize you out there in any parking lot working so hard to raise money for the band boosters at the high school, or out there coaching soccer over and over and over again. You were always out there when somebody needed a volunteer, and we certainly appreciated it. So by volunteering all your time, efforts, and knowledge, you've contributed tremendously to the quality of life for the residents, and that includes all canine residents as well, for the city of Eastpointe, and canine residents as well for Roseville. So thank you so much for your time. And we'd like to say, a plaque is just a little bit of something, but I hope you all remember us. All right, let's move on to the first hearing in the public. Does anyone wish to be heard at this time? Does anyone wish to be heard? Mr. Solomon.
After that, congratulations, sir. I've never met you, but you sound like a great guy. Okay, my name is Joe Solomon. With my daughter and we have the UPS store across the street here. We did move into the city in 1985 with a dental lab, and we bought some buildings and property. A few years later, we did an addition on the building and put a new facade on the building. And in 1991, we started the mailbox, et cetera, which is now the UPS store. We plan on, I had some plans for building a dental CAD/CAM unit, but the city said it's just a parking lot, so I turned it down. Anyway, personally, I was on a DDA since 1992, and we did some projects, the striping of the parking on Gratiot and the signs, and I went up and down the business district getting petitions and going in front of committees and councils and stuff. And we also fought for the A-frame signs, which was quite an experience. Okay, the reason I'm here is the UPS store has been financially hurt in the thousands by the actions of this city. The city is now in competition with us, whether you know it or not. They have on public property a UPS access point locker, and which is direct competition with us. This has taken revenue from us, and I kind of feel bad that my own tax dollars go into competition against me. So I just want you to know that I do not appreciate, and I don't think it's right that the city should be getting revenue, and I'm sure they are, from renting space to UPS for this access point. So I would thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Does anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Does anyone else wish to be heard?
Hello, my name is Lacey Eber. I live at 1 157.
Can you speak directly into the microphone?
Yes, my name is Lacey Eber. I live at 15743 Clanter. And I want to tell you a story. In 2013, the last week of July, I washed a white comforter. It came out brown. I called the city and they said, oh, we're working on your sewers. I asked, why did I not have any notification? They apologized and said, I'm sorry, but we didn't notify the people. The very next day was my first set in a series of 35 radiation therapies for throat cancer. I lived through the construction, the demolition, the tearing up of my street, my sewers, the dirty water. I've been drinking bottled water since. And it did contribute to my cancer problems at that time. Now, on May 15th, I awoke at 8 o'clock in the morning to find a notice put in the door handle of my door stating that construction would be started again. I left my house at 12, returning at 3 to have dust from 10 Mile and Gratiot all the way down to my home on Topher. I should have gone to ER. I'm on medication for infection immediately because of that dust. And there was no, again, notification. I believe I'm not the only person in this city that has breathing problems or medical issues. We are a family town, and as a family town, we have to watch out for our families. And I don't believe the city is. You cannot start construction with taking into consideration that many people in this area have medical issues. Notification must be made. I did come down to the city. The city manager did not meet with me, sent somebody with the DPW, who explained that because the state of Michigan started on Gratiot, you jumped on this project without notification. Now, here I am, back in a situation that I, who own my house outright, have to look for an apartment so I can breathe. And being on medication within 3 days after. And my doctor scolded me for not going to emergency the very first day. This is unacceptable. Completely. People have to be notified. And I think this is very disgusting.
Can you leave your address over with Linda, please?
Yes.
And your telephone
Linda's-
number?
I spoke with Linda. I came down immediately. And this is, quote, a 4-month project.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Does anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, the first hearing of the public is closed. We move on to approval of the minutes, and the first item is the show cause hearing of April 11th. Can we get a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes of the show cause hearing from April 11th, 2017.
Do we have support?
And I just had two minor things I noticed. On one of them, just said Councilman, Mr. Marion's name, I think, was missing on page 7 for the Saxony property. And then my name went back and forth on one of them from DeMonico to DeMarco and back for the Gascony property. So just minor things we probably should fix so it's accurate, but that was all.
So that would go to Carroll Court Reporting, and so that would go to Mr. Albright.
Yes.
Anyone see anything else? All right, please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. The second item is the regular meeting of May 16th, 2017. Do we have a motion for those?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes, May 16th, 2017.
Do we have
Support.
Move and support? Any corrections on this?
Yeah, just one minor thing brought up by, I think Linda, actually. The payroll should say May 16th instead of June 6th on the fourth page.
And is that the only correction? All right, with that, please call the roll.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
We only have one scheduled hearing for today, and that relates to the 2017-2018 budget. Does anyone wish to speak in their opinion related to the budget? Budget's been published, it's on the city's website, it's also over at the library. Does anyone have anything to say about that? Seeing none, that hearing is closed. Move on to unfinished business, and the first item and only item is the discussion of city manager's contract.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to take the discussion of the city manager's contract and move it to closed session.
Do we have support?
I don't believe that we're able to do that because it's not collective bargaining.
There would have to be a reason for going into closed session for that discussion.
It would be possible under periodic performance evaluation. If so, and I consent to it or request it, then it would be permitted.
Yeah, we just need to state the reason for going
Yeah.
into closed session.
Would that be your reason?
It's so moved.
So what's the reason again?
To perform a periodic performance evaluation under the Open Meetings Act, if the consent and request of the employee is to hold such discussion in that.
Thought that was just for the performance evaluation.
It can be done anytime, periodically, and if it relates to anything else in terms of employment, if it has a detrimental effect on those terms or employment status, then the employee may request that discussion be held in executive session.
And then we'd come back out and,
Yes.
Mr. Marion, then we come
Yes.
back out.
No action can be taken in the meeting, and you may, and I don't know, Mr. Marion, if you want to put that with the other closed session item we have.
We could attach that to the attorney-client privilege, closed communication, labor negotiations.
I just want to voice I'm totally comfortable with doing that. I'm going to ask Rich to be diligent in keeping us on point to make sure that when we talk about the contract issues out here, so
Yes,
after the closed
We
session.
will come back.
Okay.
I have a mover of Mr. Marion.
And I would support it. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Move on to reports from administration. We'll start with the city manager, Mr. Duchesne.
Just a couple of notes with speakers tonight. I'd like to respond on a couple of things. First, regarding the MDOT Gratiot construction, that is going to take place over a period of 4 months. The city is not the lead agency on the project. MDOT has its rules, and regarding who its notifications are regarding air quality, I'm unsure of. Perhaps city engineer can look at that regarding outside air quality regarding public construction. But we have been very interactive with them. There's also construction taking place by Consumers Energy, which is also doing field construction, and I don't think there are no air quality requirements regarding that type of maintenance construction, but we can check with them on that. The other aspect regarding the UPS box, the UPS device was going to go into a private parking lot. It was been a challenge for proper commercial operation. So in discussion with them, they offered and we accepted an alternative next to the library, and they are paying going into the parking lot maintenance funds about $100 a month for that UPS. So that is, it was our understanding that is a corporate decision, and that is why we agreed to do that, is to relocate it from a commercial site that would have been problematic for the public to that. location, so. That's all I really had, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anything for the city manager?
I had one thing. I was wondering if we could get, actually, Mayor Pixley, you mentioned it earlier, the Police and Traffic Safety Commission. If we could get that back together and meeting again, because, well,
I believe we've had many discussions about that, and it was the recommendation of Deputy Director, or the Director McNeilance when he came, because we did an evaluation. Is that, Mr. McNeilance, would you like to speak to that, please?
The only thing I can speak to is the recommendation that I made, and to use the Traffic Improvement Association, and we do pay dues to them to make any recommendations and on any signage or traffic issues that come before the department. So we rely on their expertise that really was not present with the commission. So what the status of the commission is as far as being officially terminated or continued is I'm not sure.
And following your recommendation, did they not come in and completely review the city?
They haven't done a complete review of the city, but on a case-by-case basis, if we get an issue, we will consult with them and they'll advise us. They'll send a traffic engineer out to look at it and then make a recommendation, and then we bring that forward.
MDOT did, I believe, under a grant, do a review, maybe that's what he's
Oh,
speaking to.
I know that they reviewed particularly the intersection at 8 Mile and Gratiot.
are there any, I guess I'd just like to see specific changes brought forward, I guess, for a few intersections. I mean, as probably most people, like 10 and Hayes, I think could use review. And I'm sure there's a few others. I know I've mentioned to you, Mr. Duchesne, the no turn on red at 9 and Kelly. I think there used to be a blockage of view, but there's not now, and it's a very long light. Just things like that, I think, would be good to run through a commission of residents. Just start to review. I don't think I've seen anything like that since I've been on.
One of the challenges of those regarding our under the jurisdiction signalization of the Macomb County Road Commission, and they would need to, well, the Department of Roads. Now, so what we could do is relay those thoughts, concerns to them in their traffic safety division and have them do a review on those. I think that was part of our grant workup with the Department of Transportation, was highlighting those problem signalization areas. And certainly along 10 Mile, we have actually a couple of spots that should be relayed to them for further review.
But I thought I saw Mr. Pangori hiding in the back there.
Going back and forth back there.
It wasn't all that long ago, maybe 3 years ago, the county reviewed, it was the county that reviewed 10 Mile Road and made recommendations. And when you reconstructed that area, maybe 3 years ago, you followed the recommendations. There were some changes at that time. I know because we tried real hard to reduce the speed limit on there, because there are a lot of people that the speed limit is 35 and or 40, and they're going 45 or 50. And it also is very difficult to get on. And I said in many of those meetings, trying to make those changes, but once the county makes the decision, you're just a little city person and you don't have a bit of a chance to change those.
May I suggest that perhaps council wants staff to draft a number of intersection issues and pass a resolution that can be forwarded on to the county road division for further study.
Because it has been maybe 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's probably a wise piece of advice to do.
All right, let's move on to you. Mr. Blum, Finance Director.
Madam Mayor and Council, I have nothing to report. I'm just happy to get the check from the treasurer. Got a few bills to pay before the end of the fiscal year, so that's greatly appreciated. But I don't have anything else.
Anyone have any questions?
I just had one question. Was curious about the Memorial Field renovations. I see we had some in here. Is, let's see what number it was. so everybody knows. Lost my place here, sorry. Well, wherever it was, about $5,800. Is that everything we've spent on the renovation so far, or what is that looking like? Oh, here it is,
No,
113,482, sorry.
I don't think that's everything.
Oh,
It's
there.
not everything, because it's not
No.
all done.
Yeah,
No.
bits and pieces.
Yeah, I don't know how much has been spent so far on that. We just pay the bills as they show up.
Yeah,
I've heard some projects have gone on with that.
I just don't recall looking at that at the table here, doing anything at Memorial Field in the concession.
There was originally proposed $250,000 in the capital budget for complete elimination of the building and rebuilding it. Then there's been, and we'll have to go back and evaluate and analyze how many different sections, but there was small sub-projects that were put in place to try to restore it to some standard of use. As you recall, when we took our bus tour, 2 years ago, we walked more or less in and out of that, so that's the general area of work. So we can summarize that for you.
I think it's also been noted in the staff minutes and from the staff meetings of the progress and what they've done during that period of time.
Okay,
We can do that.
that's all I had.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Blum? All right, let's move on to Mr. Albright, our city attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. The building department is requesting that the city council schedule 5 show cause hearings for properties which are subject to dangerous building hearings. Those properties include 23027 Donald, 23035 Donald, 22304 Furwood, 24923 Wilmot, and 19061 Rosetta. Ms. Van Haren has informed me that she is not available for the second meeting in June. The next available meeting times, if the council wanted to do it before a city council meeting, would be either July 11th or July 18th, or any other time that the council preferred.
July 11th?
July 11th works better for me.
Oh, does it? I would prefer the 18th. I can make the 11th work.
I mean, I can make the 18th work.
I'm going to be in Montana. I'm not sure if I was going to be back by the 11th, but it should work out.
I can do the 18th if necessary.
I'm going to be
That's fine.
gone.
I won't be gone, I'll be here.
I'm going to be gone.
Oh, you're gonna be gone. Oh, so then.
Let's do the 11th then.
And did the council want to start with a 6:30 start time or something different than that?
Please.
There are five properties involved.
Those all sound very familiar. Did we just do those a couple months ago?
I don't believe so. Maybe a couple of them. Okay.
Okay,
There are 5 total.
so we'll start at 6:30 on July 11th.
I will get the notices out. Council's in receipt of our June status report, all 16 pages of it. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that. And if not, on behalf of the city attorney's office, John, we wish you and Mrs. Marion the best of luck.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Albright?
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to new business. Our first item is the authorization for engineering services related to the Transportation Improvement Program from Topher Reconstruct from Boulder to Roush. This is the second one, correct? That's was on SEMCOG for,
That is correct, Mayor. Fortunately, the city did receive nearly $1.4 million for the reconstruction of the next piece of Topher, which would go from Boulder to Roush. We're seeking authorization to begin design work so that the plans and specs will be reviewed and approved by MDOT so that bidding can occur in early 2018.
you have questions?
No, I was going to make a motion in case anyone else wanted.
Please do.
I'll motion to engage the professional services of Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick to prepare engineering plans, specifications, and provide contract administration for the 2018 Surface Transportation Program Topher Avenue reconstruct from Boulder to Roush, and authorize the city manager to execute all documents related to the contract.
Support.
Any support? Any questions or any extra information you want to give us, Mr. Pangloder?
Topher's in bad shape there.
Topher's in bad shape. We do not have funding for the next section that would take it to Kelly at this time, but we are aggressively seeking the funds to do that last piece.
I'm sure it would be added as an amendment.
I hope so.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item B is the approval of the special event application. This one is for Cloverleaf Bar and Restaurant for the Cruisin Gratiot events. Do we have a motion for that?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the request from Ms. Marie Guerra to conduct a Tools of Triumph event on Thursday, June 15th, 2017, from noon to 10 p.m. and various outdoor activities, including a DJ, Earth Angels dancers, hula hoop contest, face painting, etc., on Saturday, June 17th, 2017, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. in Cloverleaf's parking lot with the following conditions. Number 1, provide a copy of the neighbor's approval for use of adjacent property parking lot. And number 2, any outside vendors must obtain a vendor's license through the clerk's office.
Support.
Move support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Item C is the approval of the special event application for Club Allure for a Cruisin Gratiot event. This is a new place down by Michigan First Credit Union. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the request of Club Allure to erect a beer food tent in their parking lot on Friday and Saturday, June 16th and 17th, 2017, subject to the following conditions. Club Allure must submit a site plan in advance of the event. Club Allure must obtain a permit for the tent. Club Allure must submit a general liability insurance, naming the city of Eastpointe as the additional insured.
Support.
Move support. Please call the roll.
Let's see, excuse me. Councilperson
Me.
Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Item D is the massage therapy business license for Studio of Esthetics Detroit, located at 20909 Kelly Road. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the massage therapy business license for Studio of Esthetics Detroit, located at 20909 Kelly Road, due to the business meeting all the requirements of Chapter 12, Section 6 of the City of Eastpointe Codified Ordinances for a massage therapy business license.
Support.
Move support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Item E is the bid award for the Eastpointe Parks Building roofing. We have a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to award the Eastpointe Parks Building Roofing Project to Howell Construction Services, Inc., out of Howell, Michigan, for $128,000 with a contingency amount of $12,800 with a total project cost of $140,800, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents related to this contract.
Support.
Move support.
Ed-
Do you want to tell exactly what happened with this, Mr. Duchesne, or anyone else? This is, it says with the latest 70-mile-per-hour windstorm.
That's a write-up from purchasing agent and assistant manager Altimus. They have been reviewing this and the roof failures for some time. The recent, whatever those were, high winds, frontal winds, direct winds, they were winds. And they did excessive further damage to the roof. After their evaluation, it is my understanding that prior to that, it was in need of that and starting to show weathering conditions and water inside. With that further damage, they're absolutely sure that it better be corrected now before continual wet weather does further structural damage to it. I believe there's recommendation involved in the backup that goes into some detail. Partners in Architecture has done the evaluation and made the recommendation. I see nothing to advise you to seek other directions because they haven't isolated any, but if there's a request for other, we should do so now before further action. But it does appear that that is the best course of action, best recommendation of the architects.
I'd assume we're doing something temporarily so that we don't have any more issues, right? Because even if we did approve this at the moment, it'd still be a while before anything started, right?
I think they've been putting Band-Aids on that for a long time.
For a long time.
Well, and I just asked because I just don't like that there's one bidder, and I was wondering if we can leave this out to bid a little longer to see if anyone else, just a few more weeks, and see if anyone else bids, see if we get a lower.
The bids were closed, were they not?
Yeah, you'd have to reject this bid and then
Go out for
republish it
bids one more time.
and do that, yeah. If you want to do that for additional time. It was, on Mitten and the usual places, so.
Right. Yeah, so I was, for the same amount of time it looked like as others, which was about 2 weeks, but I didn't know if anyone else on council be interested in that, or, because I'd assume our temporary fix will, a couple more weeks delay, I'd assume would be
I think it's probably the
all right.
lack of companies that are doing this type of work.
Sure.
So you're talking competitive bids, you're talking about coming in from out of state to do it. So, number one, we're not putting them to work somebody from this state, we're hiring people from Indiana to put a roof on our building, so.
Oh, I'm sure we could very well have no more bidders than we do right now, but I
But
don't know if anyone else
the
would
bid
be
was
interested.
put out May 25th, 2017. City received bids for this project. Only one bid was submitted from the 5 contractors who downloaded the project bid. So 5 people did apply.
Or did downloaded the info, you're saying, right?
Right.
I had a different question. I know Altimus isn't here, so I'm not sure if I could get an answer. It does say that we are researching filing a claim to cover part of the roof. Should we hold off on this until, because if it needs to be inspected or something, come out and just point at a new metal roof and say, I swear, it was broken before. I don't know how they investigate that.
Let me ask the risk
We
manager.
already have pictures ready to go. The only thing we needed, we will use this $44,000 shingle quote as our claim with the insurance company. We just haven't gathered all the documentation and sent it in yet. But we do plan on submitting the claim, and we have everything we need for that.
Okay. I'm fine with actually approving.
How long has this been on our capital improvement list? Quite some time. It was the very last thing that we needed as far as local city buildings.
Yeah, I think it's been on the overall schedule a few cycles, few years.
All right, so Michael, did you say that you,
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
did somebody else make a motion?
I think we have
Oh, I'm sorry.
John.
motion by Councilperson Marion, supported by Councilperson DeMonico.
Okay. Then are you ready to
So
vote?
it was for discussion, or we're gonna vote?
We're gonna vote. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Marion.
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico.
No.
Councilperson Kleinfeld.
Yes.
Mayor Pixley.
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido.
Yes.
Item F is the approval of the polling locations. This is a big change. So, as city clerk, do you want to talk about this? I don't see Mr. Altimus, and he's the one that responds.
No, he was unable to attend tonight, but the Elections Commission met on May 11th, and we did some redistribution on the precincts. And fortunately, we're also able to try to, part of the intent was certainly with the number of registered voters per precinct, number of complaints for waiting in line, took that in consideration. The former community center on 8 Mile, of course, is being sold by Rare. And we do believe, not knowing what the future is, that's a good time to split the precincts and reassign the voting locations there. We do have 2 school districts to deal with within the city. we propose to keep them separate and continue east, so there wouldn't be double or divided ballots, if you would, for school districts, avoid confusion. And we were able to add the Spindler Parker Patriot Building to the mix to also provide voters with probably a little more rapid voting for those being in line. So with that, the way the Elections Commission determines the precincts, and then the City Council is required by statute to approve of and provide polling locations. So we do want to thank the Eaton Academy on Universal for picking up a contract to house there a precinct, and then add a new precinct 9 to Love Life as well as the Spindler.
So I'd have a question. I think we've had a concern about finding poll workers. We'd need now 2 more polls.
Right.
Is that going to be a problem, finding more poll workers?
I don't think it exacerbates too much a problem from what it already is, which is finding that. And someday, if younger people don't participate in the walk-in voting process, we're all going to have to recognize in the state of Michigan, we're going to have to consolidate in some way, or, let's hope that maybe the universal, no reason absentee balloting actually does get passed, because that's really more of the mechanical problem for all of us than the number of people showing up has to be reduced, or it's going to be ineffective voting for everyone. So that's what has to be pushed. So to answer the question, it probably doesn't help, probably doesn't hurt that much, because the big, mass problem, if you would, the overall reaching problem is not enough people participating in the process.
Okay.
All right, so can we get a motion for this action, please?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the change in the voting polling locations for Precinct 4 from Bellevue Elementary School to Eastpointe Early Learning Center at 23750 David, Precinct 7 and 8 from the Community Center to Eaton Academy at 21450 Universal, a new Precinct 9 to the Love Life Church at 17363 Topher, and a new Precinct 13 to the Spindler Park Building, 19400 Stevens.
Support?
Move to support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Our last item is the resolution number 1833, which is the water reservoir rehab project. And Mr. Pangori, I'm sure that's why you're here tonight. Please.
Are now.
I think you have been working on this for at least 11 years. Do you want to describe what's happening here?
Yes, I will. So, in 2009, the City Council at that time authorized us to evaluate the condition of the reservoir and come up with an estimated cost of what it would cost to bring it back online. We did that. Do I have the dates wrong, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
We started much earlier than that.
Could be. The first one was in 2009? Okay.
I think the report was dated, but.
Okay, sorry. I don't have it in front of me, and I wasn't really here to talk on this matter, but I will get myself through it, I'm sure. That evaluation was taken to the council at that time. There was no decision made on that evaluation. The reservoir has not been in use since then. Last year, we were, or back up a few prior years, the city of Eastpointe, the city of Roseville, and the city of Fraser received the EVIP grant from the state to look at the possibility of combining those 3 cities into and sharing a reservoir. The results of that analysis showed that it wasn't really practical for Fraser to be part of that collaboration. And then a couple of years ago, or last year, we were asked to reevaluate the study. Since the original study on the reservoir, we have built a PRV down at 8 Mile and Gratiot, which was part of the costs associated with the 2009 study. So those costs weren't necessary anymore. There had been some pretty heavy increases in costs due to inflation over the past couple of years. So we reevaluated those costs, and I believe the return on the investment was worked out to be about 12 years. If we have a reservoir in place, we'll receive lower water rates from the city of Detroit. The theory being that we would fill the reservoir during off-peak hours and then use that water during peak hours. So Detroit would sell us the water or Great Lakes Water Authority would sell us that water at a lower rate. So I believe what the city is looking for today is support in the matter of a resolution in regards to rehabbing the reservoir, and then the city plans to continue discussions with the city of Roseville to talk about the potential of them buying in or joining into sharing the reservoir and the expenses associated with the reservoir.
Can I go back to the two Fraser? Is it because they're too far? What's the reason?
That's correct. Because they are too far, yeah.
Same thing would be then with like St. Clair Shores or Warren or anything. Roseville's the only city that makes sense geographically then to maybe share with?
Yes, because they are literally right across the street from the reservoir.
Right. Okay.
And actually,
St. Clair Shores has reservoirs.
actually, back in 2008 or 9, when we first started discussing that, St. Clair Shores and Eastpointe at the same time were evaluating the use of the reservoir to reduce our cost, our water cost. And St. Clair Shores went ahead with rehabbing their water tower, that's at Little Mac and 10 Mile Road, and has been able to reduce their water rates because of it considerably. And they always brag to me that they got it through and we didn't. But they always talk about the water rates being so low in St. Clair Shores. But this makes a lot of sense because the water costs, Mr. Duchesne, you could probably speak to that, or I'm sure Mr. Blum could. The cost of water coming in at night is so much less than during the peak hours.
Yeah, this report, I think, said it'd save us $200,000 or $300 and something thousand a year.
237,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the juggle point. The CBA, their cost-benefit analysis on it has to be your savings versus the cost of the improvement initially, and then the cost savings following the improvement. So it makes sense. It would have been it would have been forwarded in the budget had we not been a little concerned about cash flow in starting the project too soon right now. So it's still obviously a worthy project of the council to pursue, especially if you have agreement with neighboring Roseville participate in it. It would make a lot of sense.
Not Mr. Pangori to put you on the spot or anyone else if you know the answer. I had a couple other slightly more specific. The PRV we were talking about, the Ayton Kelly one though. I always thought that was like backup, not. It sounds like it's just not usable.
It is a secondary
in the
connection
report.
that for many years was on.
Mm-hmm.
It is in poor shape. When the one at 8 Mile and Gratiot was reconstructed, that one was closed off and remains closed off. In all reality, it should be rebuilt or a new PRV installed at that location so that we could reestablish a second feed to the city, which would be beneficial in times when, like we had this winter when the accident occurred at 8 Mile and Gratiot, and it took that PRV off. Then we would have had another feed to feed from.
So we'd have to do some work before using that one, though.
Yes, we would have to install a new PRV, very similar to the one that was installed at 8 Mile and Gratiot.
But did you not say somewhere in this that Detroit, the GLWA, has one on the Detroit side?
They did. They did install one. They did install one on 8 Mile Road, and at the time it was planned a little bit further east of Kelly, and it was intended to help protect pressures in Harper Woods, St. Clair Shores, and Grosse Pointe Woods. The DPW superintendent at that time convinced Detroit to move it west to the other side of Kelly Road. So it is offering some protection to the city, but we feel that it would be necessary to control our own pressures and and also flows at that location and install a new PRV at that point also.
But as I read this, I didn't get the idea that you were proposing that we were going to include another PRV valve at 8 and Kelly at this time. You're only looking to evaluate the system related to the reservoir in our current PRV.
I believe we included that cost as an alternate in the evaluation.
Okay. Very good report, thank you.
And then just one other thing, the generator portion, having backup energy, is there a possible renewable energy sort of option, like solar panels on top of it? It's just a heap of sod on top of it or something? Are we able to do that and have a battery or something instead of a, because that was a very expensive generator, it looked like.
Big generator,
Right.
talking about running a big pump.
I know, I don't know my specifics, but
Yeah, I think you'd have to cover half the city to put out that many KWs.
yeah,
We didn't evaluate that. I don't know the answer to that question.
I was interested, when you come back with your engineering results, I was interested why a propane as opposed to natural gas? And you barely
Maybe a
indicated.
windmill.
No, it was a diesel, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's my understanding when you get to that size of a generator that there typically diesel is used because the gas ones that size just burn up so much gas. The diesel ones are more efficient.
Okay. Okay, so can we get a motion to that effect for the engineering?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 1833, Water Reservoir Rehabilitation Project, which directs the city manager to contact the city of Roseville to determine its interest in the partnering with the city of Eastpointe to and to first determine the mutual benefit of the project, and second, to determine the appropriate buy-in on behalf of the city of Roseville.
Support.
Move to support.
and then just one more quick question. So we're just going to talk to Roseville and see what they want to do, and then we'll come back again, right? This is
Yeah.
just a very preliminary step.
The only discussions have been through the grant, which AEW did a study. We received a CGAP grant at the time, a community grant for action. However, that included a study of feasibility of interconnectivity to Fraser. And they concluded that wasn't practical at the time. But we've not had any formal further discussion. We've had general discussion with Roseville. Do you now want to proceed? And the other thing we have to do is give some, and we are talking to people that might be able to give a very a valid evaluation of what the appropriate fair level of buy-in would be for Roseville to contribute to our reservoir restatement.
Okay.
Anything else? Please call the roll.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Our next item is payroll and bills. Can we get a motion to pay the bills?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $2,963,910.81.
Support.
Moved and supported. Please call the, unless there's any more questions?
The fire payroll was really, I think on that second, on the June 6th date, forgot to shoot an email over about that, but just curious.
There's a ALS bonus that they get in June of each year, and it was on this payroll.
Oh, okay, I think I just thought.
The one that we're
everyone was
eliminating with the
November.
next contract.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anything else?
No, that was all.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. With that, move into our second hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard at this time? Does anyone wish to be heard? Sir, please come forward. And state your name.
Robert Baldwin.
Thank you.
I have some concerns with maintenance of my neighbor's property. Have a maple tree that is overgrown so much that it's fallen on power lines. Had to get them replaced, broke my fence, and spawning little maple trees all around along my fence line, which has potential to wreck my driveway because they're gonna grow into full-grown trees. I mean, they're already pretty big. And that's my first concern.
Can you give me your address, please, or give your address to the clerk so we have it on record?
22821 Normandy.
Okay, we'll look into,
Yeah, the address, you guys want the address where the tree is?
is it,
It's just a neighboring property,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
We'll see the tree.
Yeah, and I do have some photos and stuff, if you guys want them.
if you could leave those for us. And I have a comment, I can't comment during this period, but I have a comment about that when it's my turn to speak.
Okay. And I also have a problem with the road here, where the concrete is lifted up to where it's not draining properly. And it's like a sheet of ice out there. And I've addressed this before, and nobody seems to respond or even care to.
Okay, also, is that on your address then, 22821?
22829.
Okay. And do you remember when it was laid?
I don't know what happened, but it lifted up before the drain, so the water comes back away from the drain.
Okay,
And so in the winter, it's just a complete sheet of ice out there. I'm surprised nobody's gotten hurt.
okay, we'll follow up on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, you can, at the end and pass them down. Thank you for coming. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Ma'am?
One more thing, when you mentioned the traffic safety, I said my address is Glander, but I'm actually on Topher across from St. Veronica's Gym, which is now Eaton Academy. I went to St. Veronica's, my children went to St. Veronica's. At that time, there were street lights and stop signs. Now that it's Eaton Academy, it's very discerning to watch children trying to cross those streets without lights and without stop signs. There are only stop signs going from east to west on Topher, but not from north to south. And these children are running, it's 20 miles an hour around that turn, which cars do not obey to begin with. I'm glad Topher is being redone, unfortunately not in my position. But because there was no line through the middle of the street, you see cars just zooming right through, going in different lanes. And as these children are leaving school, they're dashing through the traffic. And I don't understand why Pleasant View has a street light and they have people, monitors there watching the children, and Eaton Academy does not, because they are also a school. Even though they are a charter school, those children should be protected.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Please come forward, state your name. No, into the microphone.
Hi, I'm Olivia Nepa. I attend East Detroit High School. I know it's near the end of the year, but I have a concern about like the patrol in the school, especially near the end of the day. There's, especially on Gratiot side, there's a lot of kids running around, like across Gratiot and stuff like that, and that's a very busy intersection and stuff. And some kids almost got hit and stuff like that, so I don't know about how the patrol stuff works, but if there will be more police and stuff like that around to like help traffic the kids in the cars and stuff like that, that would be great. So that's
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? All right, with that, the second hearing of the public is closed. We'll move to mayor and council reports. Let's start with Mr. Kleinfeld.
I just have one thing I'll speak about tonight, and that is that we're going to miss Mr. Marion very much. John, I respect you greatly as a council person. I'm sad to see you go. You're very detail-oriented. You pay attention, you really care about the projects that the city does. That said, I do want to say congratulations. You know, I know you just had a new grandchild, new home, and you know, even though you're leaving us, you have a lot going on that's new right now. So congratulations with all of that, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lucido?
The only thing I have this evening is also for John. Over the past year and a half, I want to say it was a privilege to sit up here with you. Your dedication to the city has not gone unnoticed for sure. I get a lot of compliments for you about you from people in the city that I know. I know you've spent a lot of time and dedication when there's projects driving around and looking into all the details, and it definitely has been very appreciated, and you will be very missed. I do want to wish you and your wife the best of luck with your future endeavors.
Mr. Monaco?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, yeah, it's been great sitting next to you here, John, up here. I think you've always got the city in mind first, and I knew that. I was always pushing for you when we had to appoint a couple people to council. I knew we wouldn't agree on everything, but I knew that you'd have the city in mind first and all the residents and everything. And it's very clear you're very dedicated to the city. We'll miss you. We know you'll be back often. Yeah, congrats, and glad to hear all these other things going on in your life, and we'll miss you. And it's really all I had, except the Cruisin Gratiot's coming up too. I just want to throw that in here on next Saturday, on the 17th, if you didn't know. And we'll be cleaning up Gratiot on the 10th. Meet at the chamber at 10, and that's really about all. And yeah, happy Father's Day. That's coming between now and the next meeting too. And yeah, that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Marion?
Well, it's been a pleasure. We found a legacy home that I think our kids are going to enjoy probably more than we will.
Well, Mr. Marion, there are a few words to say what an exceptional person you are. There aren't very many people like you, and you certainly have contributed to the city of Eastpointe. And I will miss you as a neighbor. A lot of people don't know all the work you did to take care of your in-laws and to help out all the other neighbors on the street. Perfect resident, great father, and just a phenomenal volunteer, and we will truly miss you. I want to say something to the man that lives on Normandy with the trees. We have noticed something that is affecting all of our trees. It looks like a maple leaf, but it's actually a sycamore tree. And we've reported it to the extension and so forth, and we've gone down that line, and we're assessing how many trees we have in our city as well. So Mr. Pry's been working on this for a couple years, but in the last few months, we've noticed that many of our trees that leafed, that came out with brand new leaves in May, their leaves have totally disintegrated. And I just found 2 more in some very fast action, and we think that maybe it might be a fungus, is what MSU reported to us earlier. But anyway, you're seeing it very prevalent. There's 2 trees on Semrau, huge trees. If you go into Warren, there's two streets over there. One street is Sherman, and every single tree on that street is about 50 or 60 years old and just completely denuded of every single one of its leaves. So whatever it is happening really fast, and so we'll have to take some action on it and find those trees and do something to get them down, or find out if there's a treatment possible. We were told that there isn't anything possible, so we're still researching that. But that might be the problem with that tree next door to you. And I mean, that's what the picture looks like. It's like it's next door to your fence, so. But I think that it's something that's happening throughout the city, so we're trying to assess it and then see if we can't fix that problem. Cruise, next week, starts, I believe Friday night is the car show over at the Military Museum. On Monday is at Big Boy. Tuesday is at Cloverleaf. Wednesday is First State Bank. Thursday is Villa. Friday is over at the high school parking lot as well as on Saturdays. So it's going to be really fun, lots of unusual things, and we're anticipating that we'll probably have about I would say, depending on weather, probably close to 150,000 people coming into the city. There's a lot of attractions that we'll be bringing them. We're benefiting 7 different charities this time, so including the high school band boosters. So buy your T-shirts. It helps the local charities. And the local charities get a contribution no matter how many T-shirts they sell, but they like to sell T-shirts. It gets them out there working. So that's all I have for tonight, and I will entertain a motion. And Mr. Marion, maybe you can make this your last endeavor to make the last motion here.
Madam Mayor, I move that we take into closed session for attorney-client privileged communication, labor negotiations, and discussion of city manager's contract.
Is that motion?
Performance evaluation.
For
Performance evaluation.
Thank you.
All right.
Support.
And did you support that? All right. Please call the roll.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. We'll go in 5 minutes. Our first and only item at this time is the discussion on the city manager's contract.
All right.
Who wants to go first? Mr. Kleinfeld?
I don't know, Steve, if you would want to say anything first, or
I can start this out regarding the city manager's contract. I think personally I'm ready to go in a different direction, and I've thought about this at quite length, and if anyone is interested, especially considering the email from the city manager earlier today, I had thought that I'd like to motion to not renew the city manager's contract, but extend the current contract till August 4th, except remove the severance provision would be my suggestion to council, if anyone was interested in that.
I would like to state a couple things. Number one, August 4th is essentially 6 weeks from today. Correct? We have 2 council people that are up for election in November, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have 1 council person that's not going to be here as of today. So council has to decide whether you're going to appoint someone to replace Mr. Marion or not. That's number 1 thing. Number 2 is when you have an election, you also need your city clerk to be present, and you need a deputy city clerk, and you need the staff in the office. Your deputy clerk is very close to retirement and may well do that. Then you're going to be out a clerk and a deputy clerk. And that Mr. Blum sitting over there is also very close to retirement.
Not that.
Who do you think is going to run your elections come November? Right now, this week, you're getting all your new voting machines, you're setting it all up. Mr. Altimus is going to be huge busy. If you eliminate the city manager, who do you think is going to take the city manager's position? My suggestion is to extend his contract to December, Because you may well have the only person sitting at this table, Mrs. Lucido, depending on the election results. Who's going to run the city? And where do you think you're going to get a city manager in a very short period of time, like 6 weeks?
So.
So my suggestion
okay, go
is,
ahead.
I understand you want to go in a different direction, but you have to recognize the fact that both of you are up for election as well. And you also have to recognize the fact that you have elections to run. So my suggestion is to carry him over until December, till January 1st. Because you need to wait until the election is over.
Well, if I may, I'm going to first respond to what Cardy said in terms of what he would like to motion. I wouldn't want to go in that direction in terms of just extending the current contract. If we do decide to do that, it's not a decision I would want to make without Steve being involved in it.
I'm suggesting
there are two separate things that we've gotten out of the city manager's office. One was a separation agreement. The other one was an extended contract. And I think the feeling was whatever, here's our some options, and whatever council feels they want to do is up to us. Either one's kind of like a good option to go forward, I think, and fair. Now, I personally, I had a pretty frank conversation with Steve about things I'm concerned about, but then things I love, because there's no denying that I think he's one of the best administrators out there. But I also sometimes think I butt heads with them on some issues, and so I kind of was left feeling like I don't know if it fits anymore. I'm not really sure, and that's just when he was, I guess, kind enough to say, well, there's other ways to go if depending on how the rest of council feels. I'm only one person, so I don't know how everyone's going to fall down on this. I thought kind of planning out something long-term with the separation agreement was a good direction to go in terms of trying to maybe find something that might be a better fit for us and also better fit for him. Because I like Steve very much, but that, when it comes to a decision like this, there's just things to weigh on both sides, so.
So, Ms. Lucido.
Yeah, I mean, this was new to me, the separation of employment and release. Obviously, I didn't even know this was an option until today when we received it. Yeah. So it is not something I read it and I'm taking into consideration, obviously. But, and I definitely think that there has been issues between the city manager and council, I would say, always seeing like eye to eye on everything, and maybe looking in a different direction might be a good idea. With that said, I think that the separation of employment and release would probably be my preferable way to go, because I would like to make it as peaceful as possible.
And do you want to give a date?
Well, I would obviously have to say that the August 4th date or the January 1st date would probably be ideal. Anywhere in between, I believe, would be too close to the election. It's not a major election this year, so it's not as concerning to me, which I think a new city manager would have enough time if we stuck with the August 4th date. But I would maybe consider doing January 1st also, but.
I do want to point out that we're referencing this. This isn't like council decision. This is something that only if Steve wanted to do, he would have to sign on as part of. And, I just want to keep that in mind when discussing it, kind of like
Right.
understanding what
I
it
would
is.
also want to intervene here with the fact that you have a DOJ lawsuit that is also going on. Who would be handling that if you lose your city manager?
Well, to be honest, our attorneys, I mean, that's their.
Your attorneys are doing it, but who do you think is providing the discovery materials? What was it, 5 pages long?
I think the timing would be horrible to make the change right now. Plain and simple, because there's too many variables that you can't guarantee. Number one, you're assuming you're gonna be reelected, you're assuming you're gonna be reelected, and I got a hunch there's a whole lot of people out there thinking a whole lot different. And the fact that decision has to be made on what you're gonna do with my seat, I think to try and bring, obviously, one of the better city managers in the Tri-County area, to replace him and think we're gonna find somebody else in 6 months or less.
6 weeks, August
Well,
4th.
and find somebody else, I think you're dreaming. I would think we need to look at his longevity, his experience, what he's done for this city. How about Smorza? Well, that was a good one. We looked that up in the book, How Do We Save the Financial Facility, the Financial Situation of the City, and he figured this out, developed this, invented it practically, and solved a huge problem for this city. Well, I'm gonna kind of lean towards him on what he wants to do. If he wants to say, okay, the way things are going, the DOJ thing, the changeover in the council, 6 months, I'm done with what I'm doing, let's get out of town, then if that's what he wants to do, that's what I'm gonna be in favor of. I'm gonna respect his work that he's done in this city and what he's trying to complete. And there's a whole lot of uncompleted stuff out there that we need to be looking at right now.
I have served under 3 different city managers, but in multiple different times on multiple Michigan Municipal League meetings, conferences, boards, as well as SEMCOG, meeting so many city managers. I don't think you're going to be able to find a city manager that fits into this city with less than 6 to 8 months. And Brandon, you're sitting in the back room, and the attorney, Rich, you've only been through 2 city managers, correct, here? But the last one took, what, 1.5 years?
Approximately, yeah.
And the one before that was a very difficult time, too. And will cost the city approximately, I would say, $70,000 by the time you do the search and the interviews and all. Maybe, Randy, you might have some recall about how much money we spent. Because
Actually, I don't recall.
MML Search Services was so expensive in the
was
first time
a
that
chunk
they
of money,
decided to
yes.
do one on their own and had very difficult time.
MML would charge about 15 to 20,000.
If they get one right away.
That was the range that they have written down.
You also have to think that right now within your Southeast Michigan area, you have multiple locations without city managers. And they're searching. And consider what just happened in Fraser. And consider what's happened in Mount Clemens. And consider what's happening in Hamtramck, and in Garden City, and Lincoln Park.
Madam Mayor, I've considered quite a bit about everything we've talked about here.
So,
And of course, back to my suggestion would, of course, I mean, we're making agreement with Mr. Duchesne. It's not just, so the extension would be, of course, he can just decide to not agree anything with us. And then June 30 would be his last day also.
In 2
So,
weeks?
Well, yes, I'm just saying, this is what would happen depending on what happens right here. That is all I'm saying. I'm not saying I would not suggest that, but, January 1st is too far.
I'd like to point out that, or explain some of my thought processes too. I'm not sure, even if we extended a contract, how much longer Steve would be planning on staying with us. And part of the reason when I was looking at everything, the contract's up. I wasn't in a position where I felt like I'm happy for it to end right now, but I also wasn't sure I was ready to extend another 2 years. We've had some discussions about how we are going to expect some of our department heads and top employees in the city to be turning over at some point. I don't want that to happen and coincide if they all leave 2 years from now, and that's when we have the contract with Steve leaving. Part of my thought process was it might be nice to have Steve around while we look for a manager. He can kind of help with the transition, and then department heads would be here that are very familiar with everything in Eastpointe to kind of just have a smooth transition. I mean, that's why.
How can it be smooth when you are losing 3 of your 4 council people?
I'm not basing. I completely understand I might not be here.
I mean, there is a potential that 3 of the 4 people that are currently sitting on council will not be here. And then you also lose your city manager at the same time, or you bring in a brand-new one who's never been here.
No, I agree with that, but in 2 years, we could possibly be in the same situation. I mean,
I agree with
it doesn't
that.
know,
And
you don't
that's
know.
why I'm
It doesn't-
suggesting January-
Because it would be 3 seats, it'd be 2 council members and the mayor's seat that could be turning over.
I'm suggesting January 1st. You can still have a council turnover, but the stability factor lies in the city manager or the administration.
Okay, I see.
We could still have new council people. I mean, I don't know. An election coming up was not a consideration in this whole thing. I don't know why you're focusing on it so heavily. I'm just focusing on the management of city operations day to day.
If I may interject here, I think if the proposed option of separation of employment releases, I talked about considering retirement and other factors going into it. If that's of interest to the majority of the council, and I thank very much all of those who've expressed a positive support and about transition times, and I understand your position. I think the mechanics of the separation of employment are what is going to be important for both parties. And certainly as I helped Eastpointe transition and go into a date, if my last working day is August 4th, then I will do my best in that period of time. And I know, as the mayor said, it's a short time, but I'll do my best under the terms of that agreement to work forward and assist you in any way that's possible in making this transition orderly and make sense. With all the conditions and other things that are in there, as I spoke to Mr. Kleinfeld earlier, I significantly suggest you take a look at what you get in the agreement also. There are conditions and issues there that are very important, and going forward, I think they will prove to be beneficial to both parties. Now, if there's a term in there of amount, there's a specific section that talks about the conditions for those releases of valuable and working consideration in there. If there's a particular tweak or not, I'm certainly open to hear that from council, and we can work that out. And you could act on it, you could act on it tonight, technically, and we can get the ball rolling as far as things go, so we can make this, again, a reasonable transition. I can help you. And obviously, one thing you want to, and I said this earlier, one thing that you want, the first call made by replacements, as a retiree's going out the door, they're going to call him and say, what kind of place was it to work? And how that goes. So I think that this mutual benefit interest, and I know, and And Sarah, I remember a month or so ago, you came in and asked me, what are your plans too? And I probably hemmed and hawed a lot because I'm in transition making plans too. So I think this is proposed. I think Mike's discussion today was valuable in that sense. I wish I could have sat down with each individual, but it's not the nature of the way we do business, and we can do business in public. So, but that's my thought, is if we're going to do this in that manner, then let's look at that agreement now before things get too far afield and we can't really construct it properly with the proper intent, if that makes sense. Fallback would be to adopt it on, or pass it on the 20th meeting, but then that shortens up the time and it constricts options that we have. So that would be my suggestion. And again, I appreciate to the voices that have said there's concerns, but I think the other concerns and things in balance work out for everybody, I think, better for Eastpointe going forward.
Just one housekeeping item. I mean, since we just received this at 4, I would, of course, not be comfortable enough voting exactly on what this is. You know, I'd like Mr. Albright to review it and have time to look a little more closely. But if we can get a general idea now, and then maybe on the, you know, all just about agree, and then on the 20th actually, you know, vote on it, that'd probably be my preferred.
I think it would really be helpful if you looked at the date on this, on the agreement. And the agreement takes you into the date of November the 20th, which would be just time enough to swear in 2 city council people.
His suggestion's August 4th.
I actually am gone, would be actively out the 4th, and we had extended the terms of the agreement that I would still be available. But the last considerations and payments would be into the end of November.
So you're
So it's the 30th.
contracting a little bit until then?
Yeah, I think that I'm you know, we've done a lot in 6 years to change Eastpointe, and as was properly mentioned, you know, I came with a situation where there was emergency manager in the future, and we've come a long way and made those improvements. So I don't want to see Eastpointe fail. I don't want to see the council fail. I obviously don't want to have challenges and issues either.
You also have a great deal of change that's going to happen both with Sarisa as well as Rare, because you hold chairmanship positions in both of those locations.
Right.
And we are over in the Northeast Sanitary District over there. We are going through a major purchase, which is quite a phenomenal amount of work. It's not just legal, but it's also a great deal of financial and going back through charters and so forth. And we were very fortunate to have Steve, with his background in administration as well as financial, to be able to review some of those documents. There's no one else in the whole area that has any understanding of those things. You also have a tremendous amount of work to be done on the DOJ. So if the date is here on August 4th, I'm wondering who's going to be representing administration on the DOJ.
Okay.
You have one city attorney, but I'm sure you can say, Rich, that Steve has been very active, involved with all the retrieval of the data and the information that's necessary for the discovery process.
That is correct.
And so when is the last date that you have to have that information?
We're up against deadlines presently.
And how many hours, I know that you had a meeting last week and you've had another meeting this week. So you're meeting usually about 3 to 4 hours a week?
Things are ramping up on that case, yes. So we've been actively meeting. There's been a lot of hours being put into that case. We have just recently also, because of the way that documents have to be prepared and provided to the Department of Justice, we've had to retain the services of a litigation support specialist. In fact, that company was, I just met with those representatives last Friday, and again this past Monday. And there are a lot of very voluminous amount of documents that are being requested by the Department of Justice related to that case.
Rich, I don't know if did you see the document we're talking about? Did you have time to review it at all?
I received it late in the day, and I also, both Mr. Erie and myself reviewed it. We haven't had a chance to look at it in great detail,
Yeah.
but we did have a chance. We took out for instance, the deadlines in there. We were able to take a look at that and some of the release language. But I would want to take a closer look at the actual agreement itself. But if the council chooses to discuss provisions in here and come up with just a general understanding of how the city wants to proceed, how Mr. Duchesne wants to proceed, that can be done tonight, and we can work out the details, certainly at a later date.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because I mean, I understand that we haven't had the time to look this over in terms of, well, this for sure is good to go and stamp it. So I suppose what I would want to talk about would be dates. I'm sorry, you said deadline, Rich? What page were you?
Well, I was looking at the August 4th date where Steve would be agreeing to retire with effective date of August 4th, 2017. And I know that there are other dates in here, for instance, November 30th. That's another deadline. There's also a December 10th deadline. Those are some of the dates that were sticking out.
Yeah, the November 30th date is the last time we'll have an official relationship as transferring funds. And December 10th is only there because that is the actual last payroll date that covers the prior period in November. So those are just mechanical dates that are in there. The operative one is retiring on the 4th of August. And then, of course, again, there's mutual releases and agreements in there. And then I would be able to begin work immediately with the recruiting arm of the MML or others to help you secure a manager at the earliest possible date, and probably be able to facilitate that better than most because those, I know the recruiters well, you could say. So there you go.
So is the plan then to have Mr. Duchesne work 40 hours a week?
Well, that would be my plan to go through August 4th, but
And then after August 4th, how many hours is he going to be committed to?
I believe the way you're talking about it, August 4th would have been it. That would have been the retirement date.
that would be the mandatory 40
And
hours. that we do.
so we're not going to have anybody working on the DOJ?
Well, I mean, this is, from now until August 4th would be the transition period.
But who else are you going to have working with administration?
I understand that we may face a gap, but I don't think that our departments are unable to manage if we have to go through an interim time without an official city manager. I mean,
You will have to make somebody acting.
Yeah.
Because of the charter
Who would
requirements
that
and
be?
code, but that's, right
You're
now.
going to make
Well,
Mr.
after
Altimus?
Darwin was it
Altimus.
Altimus who was interim before?
For a year and a half, and he absolutely said, I'm out of this, I will never do it again.
Well, as being assistant city manager, I'd assume, you're signing up to be the city manager if you need to be. He comes to our meetings, but MML also has a list of interim managers, so he could be a very short-term technical city manager. We can even get an interim one. I'm assuming there are folks that are retired, maybe be willing to come out for a couple months while we're doing our search for a permanent one. Something like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure we can figure something out, Madam Mayor.
Are there other elements in the agreement?
So, yeah, I guess for me, the date is fine, and then I think the other major thing, when you're being paid until, I guess, I think are the two major items, so I don't know how the rest of council feels on that.
It's, the term, that is, the same as my current contract for 5 months. So that was how it was styled, so we'd have that relationship for that period of time.
Okay.
For me, that's something we would have to shorten. That was one of my concerns about renewing for 2 years, was that we're at a point now where when the contract's up, the contract's up. But if we renew and want to go in a different direction later, that's when it costs 5 months. I think it's around like 50 grand or something like that, which is kind of why, just kind of the way things have lined up time-wise, kind of forced to make a decision that I probably wouldn't have wanted to make for a couple of months. And I think the reason we're looking at a separation agreement now, I don't know what is agreeable to everyone on council, but I believe in my private conversation with Steve, what I would be willing to give in a contract if I renewed was not necessarily something he would want to accept, which is why this alternative seemed something he'd be happier with, and then something I, could live with. I think that's where we ended up, and that's why we're discussing this now.
Yeah, the 5 months, for me, it's the financial expense of it, because $50,000 is a lot of money, especially knowing there is going to be costs going into hiring someone else. I would be willing to pay some sort of severance, but I don't know if 5 months.
What's your your contract currently is?
5 months.
5 months.
And of course, again, the terms of the contract have to be, and the release are valuable commodities for both parties, so that's why that was continued in that manner. There's certainly, and I guess your attorney can advise you better, but, and Labor Council too, but there are things that the release does for you in that period of time with this term that you would otherwise not have in place. You know what I mean? It's, I mean, again, we don't want to ruin the spirit of the idea if we go into things here, but that's what it'll buy you, things that I'm sure Labor Council and City Attorney will tell you are valuable commodities for you at this time.
What's section 5D mean, or what was, why did you include this one?
I'm sorry, I'll have to refer to one.
That's fine.
Where I buried mine.
It's the hereby.
Oh, this is something that, again, your council will advise you is important. It really does, when that separation goes into effect, parts 1 through, it goes on, it really addresses all kinds of things that apply to an employee in this situation. There is provisions about, well, there's a long list, but just shortening them up, Americans with disabilities, older workers, Elliott Larson, all kinds of things in there that the city virtually buys and settles for. Rich, yeah, you may take.
I could address it very simply, to put it in the plainest terms. If this agreement is signed with this language in here, this is it. There's no one is going to bring a lawsuit in the future. There's no one that's going to file a complaint, allegations, anything like that. This is the final agreement, and once it's signed by everybody, that's the final outcome here, and there isn't going to be any further action taken.
Okay.
So it provides finality to the parties if this agreement is signed. Okay. And it essentially assures that nothing further will happen in the future.
Okay.
What's the next step?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I guess, what would council members feel is acceptable, I guess, in terms of if,
Well, I mean, I guess it's hard because like we really haven't had like a chance to really like think about this, you know what I'm saying? So, you said like 5 months would be beneficial for us and that, you know, he would let us, you know, Rich would let us know why it would be beneficial, Mr. Albright. But I
You
would
pretty
like.
much covered it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it can be a
Right,
little more
so-
elaborate, but that's,
I could make it longer, but for an interest of time, I want to just sum it up like that.
So maybe meet like maybe like do 3 months? I mean,
So,
it would bring it to, what's the November, September 30th, or no, it'd be October 30th?
I think you're gonna want all the time you can get.
well, this is just for the date we're paying him until,
Till
not
the
the-
date
the
you were
amount of-
paying him till, yes.
Yeah.
so.
Uh,
So right now, if we didn't renew, it'd be 0 months. And if we terminated immediately, it'd be 5 months as in his current contract, so. And, yeah, Mr. Duchesne, you're suggesting, yeah, how many months are, again, we're talking here, August?
I think he's actually.
I originally was
September.
thinking 2, but I think it's 3.
Well, it's pretty much all of
Something
August,
I could
September, October, and November. It's almost 4 months. So, about 2 months, I don't know, halfway. We'll go halfway with Mr. Duchesne on that. So he'd work till August 4th. We pay him for 2 more months. It'd be a 2-month severance essentially.
so I think the last pay period then would be the first one in November. Randy, I know you don't know these off the top of your head, but I do believe that would be, yeah, that would be acceptable,
That
I
would be
believe.
7 days before the election.
That is true, but if we go to the amount I proposed on the 5th, I'll assist, you know, further with that, but obviously other actions will have to take place, but
Oh, I don't even want to hear Randy Altimus.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you.
well, I mean, if you stick to what's mine fundamentally 5 months, then,
yeah.
you know, I mean, that carries through that period, but December 10th was picked to be through the last pay period in November. If we go to, the end of October, first pay roll in November, I mean, sometimes the months aren't exactly the best illustration of this because there's, you know, we go by pay period. So if you pay through the first pay period in November, I would find that, I think, acceptable on my side with the rest of the agreement.
Okay. Councilman Lucido, Councilman Kleinfeld.
Sorry, I was counting
Okay.
weeks in my head. I think that's acceptable to me, August, then to the first pay period in November. That said, I don't know if we formalize an agreement or like formally vote to make an offer, or if we need to wait for Rich to have an opportunity to, I guess, take a closer look. I'm actually,
I'd say,
from what I saw from it, it seemed pretty solid. There wasn't anything that I thought was a gotcha
No,
thing in there. I thought it was a fair.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
It's been tested a few times, so I can tell you it is, but
I would agree with that, too. Having reviewed it earlier today and during the course of the meeting, the document isn't very long, and a lot of the language is general.
So I'd say barring very minor changes, we offer, or we have an agreement right now and give Mr. Duchesne till the next
Do
meeting.
you need a
then
vote to go ahead with the agreement?
You should probably, to some, Mr.
So do you, one of you want to make the motion for the agreement with the stipulations that you've entered into it?
I will in a moment. I know this is a tough conversation to have. I really just want to reiterate that because of my frank conversation with Steve about where I was, what I was willing to offer, I really think this is an agreement that I guess most beneficial to everyone and fair to everyone too, because like I said before, I really have a lot of respect for Steve, and I don't think, I kind of wanted to reiterate that it's just, where I was at negotiation-wise, this seemed like an alternative that made sense and agreeable to everyone, so I'm sorry.
Well,
Please make your motion.
With that, I will make a motion to extend the offer for the separation of employment and release agreement that's in front of us, with the change that pay and benefits would extend until the first pay period in November. And I believe, realistically, that's the only change we had to make.
So is that,
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
No.
Mayor Pixley?
No.
Councilperson DeMonico?
yes.
I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.